And thank you all for coming. I'm glad to be here. I'm here to present BBS Bioactive Bone Substitutes. BBS is a Finnish biotech company. We make a bioactive bone graft substitute that is more effective at bone healing than current products. The company is based on pioneering research in bone healing by its founder, Pekka Yalavara, who's here with us today. We can meet with him after at the company deck if you like. So the company has 12 employees. We have a research headquarters in Oulu and a manufacturing facility in Reisjärvi, Finland. A little bit about the background behind BBS and how it got started. Professor Yalavara is a professor of orthopedic surgery at the University of Oulu. While he was a practicing clinician during his career, he found that there was a major problem with a common bone grafting operation. The problem is the operation that's needed to make the bone graft is something called an autograft. This requires the surgeon to do a second surgery on the patient's own body to remove healthy bone, usually from the hip. The problem with that is patients will have a higher risk for complications because of the second surgery, and up to 50% of the patients report long-lasting and significant pain from the hip up to 2 years after the surgery. So Professor Yalavara started, back up to the slide, the bone transplantation group here. This group's objective was to find an alternative to autograft. So the group studied bone extracts made from a variety of different animal sources. And surprisingly, it found that an extract made from reindeer bone was remarkably much more efficient at regenerating new bone from extracts made from any other animal source. So basically that's how BBS got started, and we're here today to introduce our new medical device product called ArtBone, and we're getting ready to go to market. So a little bit about what makes ArtBone unique. Again, because it's being developed as a medical device, it has the two principal components needed for effective bone regeneration. Most products on the market don't have these two principal components. The first component is osteoinduction. This is the start of the new bone growth. This requires signaling to bone cells to start growing new bone, and this can only come from proteins. The second component, osteoconduction, is usually provided by a mineral, like a calcium. This provides a surface and a structure for new bone cells to grow on. So the ArtBone medical device has both of these principal components. What's unique to ArtBone and our products is that the bone proteins are made from reindeer bone, and these are biologically active bone proteins and growth factors. And ArtBone is, by the way it makes this bone extract, is unique. There's no other type of product in the world today like it. The other thing it has is a synthetic beta-tricalcium phosphate. This is the calcium component that provides the structure for new bone cells to grow on. So it has both the osteoinductive component and the osteoconductive component. The other thing that reindeer proteins do is it accelerates the resorption of the TCP granules. This is necessary as new bone is remodeled. So what this results in is basically a faster and better bone healing than existing products. Here's a demonstration of the bone healing properties of ArtBone. I'm going to skip talking too much about this side and just focus on the results on the left. This is a sheep model. This was the last large animal model that BBS needed to do because this medical device product was on a clinical development pathway. And in this model, we showed that within 3 weeks of implanting ArtBone in a sheep bone defect, we saw new bone being developed. Within 8 weeks, the new bone was completely remodeled, and there was accelerated resorption of the TCP granules. And then in 16 weeks, as shown here, there was completely remodeled new bone. This used to be an empty bone void space, and 16 weeks later, it's filled with new bone that's identical to the adjacent normal bone next to it. So these results were good enough to allow BBS to then advance to the first in human clinical study. Here's an example of a patient from this clinical study. 34 patients were enrolled in a very challenging ankle fusion procedure. This patient has osteoarthritis of the ankle joint here, and the only option at this point is an autograft to fuse the ankle joints. As we said before, autograft comes with downsides, but unfortunately, no current bone graft substitute products can effectively heal this joint. The red dotted line here shows 12 months after implant of the ArtBone product, completely fused ankle joint with new bone. So we have 34 patients enrolled in this study. We met the clinical safety and performance standards required. This is the only clinical study BBS needs to do to advance on the pathway towards CE marking. So here's our first product, ArtBone in a ready-to-use paste in a syringe, a 3cc syringe. This was the same product that was used in the ankle fusion study. In fact, BBS custom designed this syringe for ease of use, single-use application. There's no mixing involved. The other thing that's unique about this, of course, is the biologically active reindeer bone proteins and growth factors are mixed with the TCP, and in this case, we add glycerol and some other excipients in order to form this flowable paste. This particular product is ideally well suited for small joint spaces like those found in the foot, ankle, wrist, hand, or other small body bone voids. Now, to expand our range of clinical use and applications, we also have products in the pipeline, larger TCP granules coated with ArtBone protein and TCP blocks. This will give the orthopedic surgeons more opportunities to use larger amounts of bioactive bone graft substitute product to expand the range and use of applications. So this is where the ArtBone product family fits into the bone graft substitute market. On the pie chart on the left here is shown by division of surgical procedures. Still today, autograft, even given its downsides, accounts for a little over a third of all bone graft operations done in the world today. This segment here is called allograft and demineralized bone matrix. Allograft basically comes from deceased human donor bone. So, and in fact, these allograft products usually have about a 40% failure rate. The DBM products are a slightly more processed version of an allograft. Simply, the allografts are washed with acid to strip away the hard-boned mineral. But there's one problem that this entire market segment has in common. Because these products are largely made in the United States and come from US companies, the US FDA requires that each of these products be lot specific to a single human donor. This causes problems because human donors will range widely in the quality of the donor bone based on health and age. And so there's no way to get quality and consistency from lot to lot of these products. This product segment is called synthetics. In fact, our TCP comes from this product group. The problem that synthetics have is they're good at osteoconduction, supporting bone growth, but because they don't have proteins, they can't effectively start bone healing. This product segment here used to be twice as big as it was, recombinant growth factors. These are highly potent drug products. In fact, the entire product segment is dominated by a single human single protein growth factor called BMP2 that used to be about twice as large of a market share until about 5 years ago. Because it's so potent, it was found to be associated with about a 50% complication rate, in some cases growing bone where it wasn't supposed to. And so this chart on the right, this chart on the right shows the relative position of these products in terms of their osteoinductive capabilities and the osteoconductive capabilities. Remember, synthetics have no osteoinduction. The DBM allograft products are weakly osteoinductive at best, and in some cases it's been shown that some of these lots of product have no detectable bone growth factors at all. The recombinant growth factors are highly potent, supraphysiologic products with risks and complications. Only the BBS ArtBone product fits into the sweet spot relative to autograft. It has a normal physiological full range of biologically active bone proteins and growth factors. So here's the current bone graft substitute market, nearly $3 billion US per year, and expected to grow at a steady rate of 4.3%. Here we simply show the number of surgical procedures done in the US, roughly about 1 million per year for bone graft and substitute procedures, and about 440,000 in the EU5. A simple sales forecast model shows that from revenue derived from all the market segments, we get nearly $2 billion a year in 2019 and a little over $500 million a year from the EU5. The growth drivers for this market are a worldwide aging population. Older people expect to live longer, healthier, more active lifestyles. Another driver is that the younger surgeons are more readily adopting these new, more advanced, innovative technologies. And finally, both surgeons and patients have a preference for minimally invasive procedures. Anything to avoid an autograft but still have good, effective bone healing is a preferred option. So, this is the worldwide market opportunity. We can estimate at 242 million per year, based on a very simple calculation of roughly 2.2 million bone graft surgeries done worldwide at a market penetration rate of 10%, and we feel we can justify an active penetration against all the market segments. And at a price competitive pricing model of about $1,100 per dose or implant of art bone, we can generate this type of revenue. This falls pretty much in the mid-range of the top 10 market players in the orthobiologics product market. And by the way, these players account for about 65% of the total market revenue. They're also very active at looking at smaller companies for the newer and more innovative products. So here's how and why art bone will compete effectively against all these market segments. Again, just as a reminder, autograft, still the clinical gold standard, accounts for about 1/3 of all bone graft operations. And even though it's relatively good performing, it comes with pain and higher risk of complications. And there's, of course, the expense associated with the additional surgery and possible complication risks. Art bone will compete effectively against the recombinant growth factors because it's much safer and much less expensive. Now, these product segments, machined and banked bone allograft and the allograft and DBM products, these products are basically a less expensive version of the allograft products. These products the allograft have about a 40% failure rate, and again, they have the same problem in common. They come from single human donors. The reason art bone can compete effectively against this entire product segment is because we can manufacture our biologically active bone proteins and growth factors from large amounts of young, fresh, healthy reindeer bone. This cannot be done with the human donor bone products. They have to be lot specific to each human donor. We can pool and manufacture and have high-level consistency and quality standards so we can guarantee better, faster, and effective bone healing based on the biological components in our product. Art bone will compete effectively against the synthetic segment because our medical device product has two components, the proteins and a TCP synthetic. And the synthetics by themselves, bone cements and other physical materials like calcium, phosphates, and sulfates, don't have proteins, so they completely lack an osteoinductive signal. So we feel that art bone is going to be well positioned to basically be an ideal replacement candidate for several of these market segments and eventually challenge allograft itself. So our products are backed by a strong patent portfolio. The bioprocess technology is well documented and is broadly applied across Europe, Asia, and North America. We also have patents on some of the bioactive growth factors from the reindeer bone. And we have a deep 10-year development history in the process technology behind making bone extracts from bone to retain the biologically active components. There's a deep technical know-how, and much of this is trade secreted. And as far as we know, no one else in the world is doing something like this. So we actually own, for a small company of only 12 people, we own and control a manufacturing facility where we not only manufacture the biologically active reindeer bone protein extract, but we also assemble and load the ready-in-a-paste syringe devices. 90,000 reindeer are harvested in Finland every year. We have an exclusive supply agreement with the largest slaughterhouse in Finland, which is in the northern Lapland area, and that company is actually owned by a Swedish company, Polarica. We have a GMP certification from the Finnish Medicines Agency, Fimea, because this product started out on a medical device pathway. The entire process of manufacturing, chemistry, and controls is regulated at very, very high quality standards. Our current production capacity is 25,000 doses or implants of Artbone per year. And if we were to use all the slaughtered reindeer in Finland, we could reach a maximum of 500,000 doses, provided we added additional manufacturing lines. And finally, the Artbone medical device is now ready for ISO 13485 certification. This is a high international quality standard for medical devices that basically covers everything from the product design, the product development, and the product distribution. We're now ready for certification when we undergo site audits, and so everything's on the path for advancing this product towards CE marking and market entry. I'm just going to summarize very briefly the development pathway history here. Basically, as we mentioned, everything started as a university spinoff from the University of Oulu, as a bone transplantation unit. Then we did a complete set of preclinical studies, a well-characterized protein extract in small animals, including mice, rats, rabbits, and dogs, a complete safety and biocompatibility study set. This concluded with the large animal study I showed you earlier, the bone defect model in the sheep. The quality of the results and performance were sufficient to allow BBS to do the first in-human clinical study of reindeer bones in an orthopedic surgery. That study was successfully concluded, and it met the performance and safety standards. We're now on the path towards CE marking. And along the way, we developed the GMP-certified manufacturing plant. So just briefly, here's our timeline. We looked to getting CE marking around the middle of next year. We'll then go directly into the European market launch. Meanwhile, we've already been in contact with the US FDA using a mechanism where we can get non-binding guidance for our strategy to introduce the Artbone products into the US, also as a medical device. This in blue is the Artbone paste, ready-to-use paste product. In green are the protein-coated TCP granules and blocks. This will follow a similar product development pathway. And I'll just mention that actually BBS is a known entity since we've been in active contact development at trade shows for the last 10 years. So both small companies and big companies know us and know our product. And this partnering activity in this area ranges from distributorships to joint ventures, strategic alliances, and exits through acquisition. Our go-to-market strategy is to introduce our products into the Nordic market. We'll use a small number of well-trained product specialists in direct sales. They'll call directly on the orthopedic surgeon, who's the key decision maker, but they'll come armed with one thing that most of these products don't come into the market with, and that's already a pre-market clinical validation study. Surprisingly, most new bone graft substitute products come into the market and then do their testing after they're in the market. So our product specialists will be able to have a very high value proposition. We expect to get rapid penetration and very aggressive penetration. We'll then expand our sales by distributorships in selected EU member countries. Just briefly, this is just by way of introduction. Our 12 employees are backed by really outstanding board members, scientific and business advisors. This is a very highly interdisciplinary team with expertise in manufacturing biomaterials directly out of medical device companies, venture capital business. So we're in a really good position to launch and carry our product into the market. And so, in conclusion, I've already covered these points, but just to sum up, we truly feel that we have a novel next-generation bone graft substitute product, unlike any product in the marketplace today. Our strategy will be to basically offer an ideal replacement candidate for the weaker segments, the DBM allograft segments. This has the potential for completely replacing essentially a $1 billion a year product segment. After doing that, we'll be in a position to challenge autograft as a clinical gold standard. And behind the product then are the fact that it's a large addressable market of $3 billion per year. We're on track for CE mark and a good solid strategy to enter the US market. We have GMP certification for manufacturing, good control over raw material supply. We do everything without needing third-party contractors, and a strong patent portfolio to back our product and process technology. So in the end, we are welcoming your participation. We're a small company with big plans. Thank you for your attention.
Paul, interesting. Try to get some perspective to your timeline there. Like how far away in the future are you to actually like reach the market for your products, Artbound then?
Yeah, it could be any time between now and about a year from now. Realistically, everything that's been done has been done according to plan over the last many years in terms of the regulatory strategy that was put in place to develop this as a novel medical device product. We've satisfied all the requirements, including the clinical safety, performance, and safety requirements. That's the only clinical study that's needed. And so now we're at the final end stage. We're doing some gap filling with the notified body. This is a very complex type of medical product that involves competent authorities in different countries. Notified body is the one that's authorized to actually provide the CE marking. So we're satisfying all the late stage questions and issues. We still need to perform some on-site audits, both of the manufacturing lines that are in the final stages now. There's only the last stage. It involves the terminal sterilization of the Artbone ready-to-use paste. So we believe that about a year from now is really a good timeline to aim for, and this gives us sufficient time now to move more aggressively into hiring key personnel, starting to do some staffing and some preparation for launching a successful product, first in Europe, and then we're parallel pathing this with our strategy and to enter the U.S. market via the FDA.
And I reckon like US will be your main market, or what do you think in the future? What will where will you find your biggest sales?
The U.S. is the bigger market for sure, but very interestingly, there's, in addition to the 10 major market players in the world, there's 250 other companies that compete in this space in the other market segments. There's basically about 50 companies that specialize in the DBM products, another 50 that specialize in the synthetics, or actually about 100 companies for the synthetics. And so we're going to present a product we feel will be a very good replacement candidate for many of these existing products. And so having a foothold, by the way, most of these companies are in the US. There's only a handful of companies that are actually headquartered in Europe, so a few in South Korea. But so for having a Finnish company, home-based, is going to be, I think, be an advantage to get early adoption rates, demonstrate clinical performance once it gets into the clinic in Europe, and that'll ease the pathway into the US.
Mm. And how about the cash burn rate? Because to expand these sale planes, you need a lot of money to do so. How do you plan to finance, the following 24 months or 12 months?
Sure, absolutely. No, we'll probably likely need more capital to advance the company's program, but we're basically here today to actually bring a level of awareness to BBS. We understand that being a Finnish company, it's not on everybody's radar screen, and we know that Swedish investors are particularly knowledgeable about life science companies. They know how to do due diligence and evaluate the product opportunities, and we feel that we have a very compelling offering to make and can justify all the claims that we're making so far.
Har vi frågor från publiken här som vi ställer till Paul? Annars fortsätter jag. Allt är glasklart. Everything looks okay. They know everything. But I'm still interested about the patent situation in your company. How many years of exclusivity do you have for your products?
Yeah, without take a risk here, probably perhaps 10 years, but we'll have to double check that. But the point here is that the developed technology is really quite unique. In fact, I didn't spend any time. If we had more time, I could have walked through on the manufacturing plant slide. There were pictures of skilled technicians in suits. So we have clean rooms. The bioprocess technology involves extensive chemical extraction of specifically of the bioactive bone proteins and growth factors. So this is quite unique. It's unlike any other process in the world. So the patent's strong. There's also components of the growth factors that are also covered by patents. And we'll maintain a very strong position on our intellectual property. As I mentioned, because we have 10 years deep product development experience, there's a lot of trade secreted knowledge and deep know-how around how to do this effectively.
Mm. And as I understood it, you're thinking about bringing this by yourself to the market. There's no talks to big pharma, so to speak, to partnership with, or
we're always going to be. In fact, we've been playing this game for many years now. Every time we've gone to a trade show, we've seen an increased level of interest among our potential competitors or partners. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the medical, the orthopedics, surgical area and medical device industry is very well known for having a very active level of participation, ranging from just distributorships to eventually outright exits by acquisition. So it's really going to depend on the success and performance of the ArtBone product once it gets more broadly into the market, and then we'll keep our options open. I think the way to put it is we'll be in a position to decide whether to seek or respond to different levels of partnering opportunities.
All right, and finally, like, what will be the biggest challenge for you, the 2019-2020?
The biggest challenge?
Yeah.
Well, to maintain the ship and rudder with 12 people, but the history of the company has been such for 10 years. In fact, it's quite remarkable that 10 years ago, we're working with pretty much the same people I'm working with today. And so everybody's got a vested interest. The other challenge is the fact that this is really a new disruptive technology, because it's really a game changer. And that's why we actually have a very well thought out strategy. We can look at the weakest product segments. Those are the DBM and allograft segments. They're weakly performing, and there's no way they can fix that problem unless the US FDA decides tomorrow to release the requirement that each DBM and allograft product be specific, lot specific to each human donor. And of course, if they then do that, we'll have the world's best technology for pooling and making bone proteins and growth factors out of any bone. We just happen to reindeer bone. And I should mention in closing, because I skipped that part, but reindeer are nature's bone-making machine. The animals, both male and females, generate 30% of their body weight every year in antler. And so there's something uniquely special and specific about reindeer. That's why the bone transplantation unit used that as the source for a product that hopefully will someday replace autograft and save people pain and complications.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul. Good luck.
Thank you.